Here are 5 things new spouses of cops should know. When I was newly married as a police officer, my life would have been so much easier, and that of my wife's, had I known these things. Number 1, holidays are just another date on the calendar. What I mean by that is you might have to work Christmas, New Year's, Thanksgiving. It's just part of the job. Police departments don't close. We're open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and that includes holidays. Now, you might have an opportunity to work a specialized assignment where you're not essential on those holidays, and those are great. In my 25-year career, I've had those opportunities where I was home for the holidays, but chances are if you're a new officer, you're gonna have to get used to celebrating those days on different days. If you're lucky enough to work for an agency where you have to work 3 days a week, you just shift those days over. If Christmas falls on the 25th, you might be celebrating on the 26th. Plan with your family, that'll make your lives so much easier. Number 2, when we come home, sometimes we want to talk and sometimes we don't. I'll give you 2 different instances as to why this is important. After a busy day, a stressful day on the job, sometimes I just need to decompress. I might go in and say hi to everybody, but I'll need a few minutes to myself in the office. I might have quiet time and pray, or just kind of meditate to decompress, because the last thing you want to do is address your family while you're hot and loaded. Make sure you're fully decompressed before you talk to them. Sometimes you do want to talk. I had a call, I remember, where I dealt with a really stressful situation involving a small child. It was one of my first violent child abuse investigations, and at the time I had small children, and I could relate my children to the situation I was investigating. And I didn't want to be alone. I wanted to tell my wife what I felt, what I saw, and sharing it helped. So that's what I mean by sometimes we want to talk and sometimes we don't. Number 3, when we're off duty, we're not completely off duty. Hypervigilance is a real thing. You spend 12, 13 hours a day on patrol at an ultra hypervigilant level. Your senses are high, your hearing is high, your eyesight's high, you're observing and taking in all the information to process. That takes a long time to shut that off. Sometimes it takes days. So when you go home and you go to Disneyland with your family or the grocery store, those perceptive intakes are still happening. So when you encounter a situation where you think your spouse isn't listening to you, it's not that they're not listening, don't take it personally, it's just our senses are so hyper overdrive that it's hard to hear what you're saying. Give us a little bit to decompress. Sometimes we snap out of it quickly, sometimes we don't, but it happens over time. Number 4, playing the politics. Now, I know you didn't sign up for the job to become a politician, but what you say, what you post on social media, and who you interact with does play a vital role on your overall impression with your agency. Now, if you have hopes to promote at your agency, it's important to know that your personal beliefs might not coincide with the department's personal beliefs, so keep them to yourself. Some of you might argue you have a First Amendment right, which you absolutely do, but some things are best kept to ourselves, and your spouses as well. A lot of people at your agency are going to develop relationships with your spouses. One of our dearest best friends is a police officer and a police dispatcher who are married, and we share a lot of our common thoughts together, but when we ever post them online, well, that might be sacrificing our promotability if we do that. What I mean by that is you need to be super careful of what you say and what you post on social media. I remember a story of an officer that was frustrated with the whole defunding the police movement that was occurring and said something that was intended to be humorous but was received as insensitive. And unfortunately, that officer had to take some days off behind that social media post. So be careful what you post. Sometimes you have to play the politician. Number 5, get used to sleeping alone. If you're one of those police officer spouses that needs to sleep with your spouse, it may happen over time, but when I started, I worked the overnight shift for about 7 years. And on my days off was the only time I was able to reunite with my spot on the bed and my comfy pillow with my spouse. So get used to it, it's gonna happen. You're gonna work different shifts, you may work overnight. I spent a portion of my time sleeping at work, so just get used to sleeping alone.